Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We have a pretty packed house here, but there are some seats that are unfilled up here if you want to come up, if you all want to sit down. So we're in the Outreach Makeover session. This is the fun session, right? Outreach is always fun. Yes. All right. So we're going to have kind of two components here. One speaker at the beginning and then two speakers together right after. So the first speaker is, and who I am. Sorry, I forgot to say that. I have to tote the company line here. I'm Jordan from Castro Valley Sanitary District. Thanks. Yeah, we work on a lot of outreach projects, and especially with schools and businesses. So check out our website, cvsan.org. Especially our For Our Business program is really cool too. So our first speaker is Dana D'Souza of Sarah Skumat's Economic Research Associates in Colorado. Since 2007, Dana has conducted work for national and international clients with projects from California to New York and in between. As a consultant, Dana has extensive experience in running stakeholder meetings, researching and conducting benchmark work, and developing case studies as well. She served on her town board for 6 years as trustee and is an avid outdoor enthusiast. I just found out that she's working on a food system work group that's really interesting in that area, and she may or may not skydive, so we'll have to figure that out later. So please welcome Dana.
Thanks, everyone. There's a few more chairs up front if anybody else wants to come on up front. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here in California with CRA and get a chance to speak with you, and especially with this great group of panelists that I'm with here. And so again, on this Outreach Makeover session, I'm going to be talking about marketing motivations, but also the best ways to measure the cost effectiveness of those programs. And it's a story in three parts, really. Those three parts are going to be talking about some of the existing programs and outreach that's out there, as well as talking about self-efficacy and social marketing, and then also looking at the best ways to determine the cost effectiveness of those programs. Make sure I get this one right. All right. So a lot of education programs that we have are borrowed from product-based outreach. If you go back to like Marketing 101 in college, it's moving an audience from unaware all the way up to hopefully the purchase, but at least up to the intent and then to the purchase. And this is more of an awareness of product type of outreach. It's not really the best fit for what we're trying to do. So we're trying to move people to change their behaviors, not just to change maybe an intent or to look at something differently. However, just giving people information, just giving them the facts really doesn't motivate them to change their behavior. I mean, most people, I would say, in California know that cars pollute, right? But there's still cars out on the road. Education and information does not equal behavior change. So when we're contracted, Skumat's Economic Research, when we're contracted for maybe different program development or looking at a communities plan around the country, most of what we hear is that communities say, we want to do an outreach campaign. We want to do an education campaign. And it's not because there's a lot of studies out there saying those are the most effective way to have a recycling program or a food waste or a compost program. It's because it's the least it's for most city councils, it's the programs that can have the least amount of pushback. You're not forcing anyone to do anything, you're just giving them an education. So it's kind of the least resistance type of program. And we get that time and time again. And so when we were going, well, okay, if we're going to have to start doing education campaigns, that's what the communities keep asking for. We're really a numbers type of firm. And so we decided, okay, if that's what we're going to do, how much of our budget should we allocate to doing an outreach campaign? Where is the cost effectiveness? What's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck? And so we first started looking around, and we really couldn't find studies that listed the dollars for the education program versus the impacts that they had. And they weren't really a lot of credible numbers, and at least, this was at least in the recycling field. And so we wanted to see if there were more measurable effects, different ways to find the cost effectiveness. And then borrowing from the energy field, we also wanted to see if there was retention, if the education and the effects of that lasted beyond the initial outreach. And so we did a study of about 120 different education campaigns around the country. And there were a lot of variations. I mean, some of these had, in-house versus hired firms to do it. Some spent a lot more money versus others. Some were very basic. But, we kind of massaged the numbers, and we came up with something we felt was pretty credible. And what we found was about 1 to 3 percentage points are found in as far as diversion for every dollar spent per household per year. But when we compared it with other programs that you have, other type of diversion programs, that really didn't stack up. That really wasn't an effective way to spend your money. It was not performing very well, just education. Other programs were finding larger impacts for less dollars spent. And so we wanted to figure out, how are we going to make, if this is what everyone keeps asking for, how are we going to make education more cost effective? And traditionally, these education campaigns are done through advertisement campaigns, your traditional advertisement campaigns, right? And it's put in there with everything else. And I'm sure this is the one that stood out the most for everyone, right? I mean, it was the biggest, right? It had the most information on it compared to all those other ads in it. But, it's a very cluttered marketplace. You usually have about 1/10 of a second to grab someone's attention and to get them to take a look at it. So it's really hard to try and throw out an ad campaign and think that's going to change somebody's behavior just on that. And so when we're looking at that, what's another way of doing that? And that's what brings us to community-based social marketing. Mackenzie Moore, he's one of the really strong leaders in community-based social marketing, notes that the emergence of community-based social marketing can be traced to a growing understanding that programs that rely heavily or exclusively on media advertising can be effective in creating public awareness and understanding of issues related to sustainability, but are limited in their ability to foster behavior change. And again, as we all know, really behavior change is that whole cornerstone of sustainability. It's not enough to educate people to make them aware of it. They have to do something about it. And so we don't want to just give people the actual facts, but we want to take a look at what is their perception of those facts? What are they taking from that message, and how are they internalizing that information? And if you're sending out a program, some people are going to take a look at that. They're going to say, this is what I see from the program. This is, if I do this, this is the result. And you need to make sure that those align with what your interests are. And so one of those ways to do that is self-efficacy. And self-efficacy was something that was coined by Albert Bandura. It's a person's belief in their ability to complete a future task or solve a future problem. It's really an attitudinal thing. It's their belief that what they do makes a difference. I'm sure some people have heard, I don't want to recycle because it just gets thrown into the landfill anyway, right? It doesn't work. If they believe that what they do doesn't make a difference, they're not going to be inspired or motivated to make that change. People that have high scores in self-efficacy feel like what they do makes a difference, not only on their individual basis, but for their community and even, maybe larger in the world. Those people that have that higher feeling of self-efficacy, it's been shown that they have higher participation rates in program. It's been shown that those do recycle more, and that they take more actions in a variety of ways if they feel what they do makes a difference. And so getting people to internalize that message, that what they do makes a difference, is really important if you want to have an effective outreach program. And so we need to find out what motivates them, and that's where you need to start doing things like market research. If you think about when people make a decision to buy something, there's usually a bundle of things that they have. In energy efficiency, a while back, refrigerators, they started really pushing energy efficiency. But when people go to buy a refrigerator, energy efficiency might be something that's important to them, but it's usually not the only reason that they're going to purchase that refrigerator, right? They might say, I want an ice maker, I want it on the outside, I want it to do crushed ice and cubed ice. Oh, and it's energy efficient, that's great. So we need to find, when we're talking about diversion programs, recycling and compost and food waste, we need to find what is that bundle of motivation that the people have, not just the one small thing. Like this morning, they were the keynote speaker, she was speaking about how with food waste, I mean, one of the reasons that a lot of us in the industry want to reduce the amount of food waste going into landfills is because of greenhouse gas effects. But most people really, that's not a main reason that they might actually change their behavior. But as she said, when you tell people we're wasting food, people understand it, people connect with that message. So find the message that people connect with. And again, do your basic marketing research. Go out there and do some focus groups, do some surveys. Make sure that what you're doing isn't just cookie cutter from some other community, that it's something that's going to be effective in your community. So here's another example of Tide. I mean, they're pretty good market share. They do pretty well. But, the reason they want to sell it is it's one of their biggest profit margins. But they don't put that on their advertisement. If that's what they did, they would not get the sales. I'm not so sure how much they're interested in those really white clothes that everyone has, but that's what people are interested in it. They've found that message. They market to that message, and it's made them successful. So find what's interesting to your community, not what is just necessarily interesting to you. So again, for our programs, other than just on an individual basis like Tide, we're trying to do something that is community-based. McKinsey Moore had said that it indicates community-based social marketing indicates that initiatives to promote behavior change are often most effective when they are carried out at the community level. And part of this is because you're making it a social norm. You're making it something that everyone else is doing, and that is oftentimes a big motivator for people. So you want to make sure when you're starting out with a community-based social marketing program, there are a lot of different tools you can use, commitments and pledges, things that remind people or have people make a pledge that they will do this behavior. Oftentimes that's going to make sure that they'll follow through with that behavior. Prompts are just reminders, norms. Everybody else on the block is putting out the recycling cart. Why aren't you? And then competitions, incentives, all those different things. Social marketing, community-based social marketing, argues that what they do changes behavior and that there's also retention. And again, as our company, when we look at it, we want to find proof of that. And we found really that, again, it was lacking data. Usually most of the studies that have been done on that are very small scale, like maybe one dorm in a community, very small. And also the cost effectiveness has not been really clear or really well traced in some of that. And so that's another thing that we set out to do with one of the programs we had. And we've done a couple of different we've done quite a few of them for schools. We've worked on military bases and different communities, setting up community-based social marketing programs. And, when we started out, we always set up a quasi experimental design. In other words, that we always have a control group. You want to make sure that you have enough numbers in your different groups that you can kind of put confidence intervals around it so that you can have some good data there. You really want to be able to measure the impact that your program is having, because as you know, if you're going to the county board, the city council, and you don't know how much of an impact your program is going to have or what the costs are ultimately going to be, you're going to have less likelihood of getting that passed. So you want to make sure that you can say, this is the amount of effect we're having, this is what it costs, this is how long it's going to last. We're making a difference, and this is how big of a difference we're going to make. And so one of the programs I'll talk about is in Colorado, and it's something that can be applied to any community, really. And we set up, again, the 3 routes for recycling. It was HOA community, so we set up a control route that did not receive any information. We set up a second route that received community-based social marketing, all the tools, but no door-to-door. And then we set up the third route, and that had all the tools plus door-to-door. And this is just an example of kind of one of the things that we do when we set up. This is from another project, but we set up a contingency plan usually when we set this up. You're going to take a look at all the different things that you want to measure, all the different programs and the ways you're hoping to reach them. But then you really need to take a look at contingencies and make sure that you have some backup plans. If you're trying to do a yard waste program and you expected it to launch in April, and it doesn't launch until December. What are you going to do about that? Your numbers are going to be way off. So set up some contingency plans. It just makes things run a lot more smoothly. This is the one of the Colorado project. These are the types of commitments we got. As you can see, paper recycling was one of the ones that people were very happy and willing to do. A lot of pledges for that. Talking to your neighbor or a friend seemed to be, people had a lot of issue with wanting to do that. I don't know, maybe not in a very friendly community or something. But as you can see this is the energy, because this project we did both energy and recycling. And for the energy impacts, the ones that were the red are the one that had the door-to-door community-based social marketing. As you can see that every one of those had an impact, a much higher impact when it had the door-to-door social marketing with it. And again, for each one of our intervention waves, we did a cost measurement. So we did everything in-house, so we measured how much time it took us to design the information. How long did it take us to go door to door? How many people were needed? How many people did we reach? What are the participation levels? We also measured, we went back and we did some waste sorts and what was left behind in people's trash cans. And very importantly, we measured pre and post, and not only just after the outreach, but we also, again, measured on this particular project 9 months later after it to see if there was retention. But as you can see, it's that tiny little square up on the right-hand side, is that the purple was the door-to-door. That going individually door-to-door was more expensive, obviously. It's more labor-intensive. But when you add in the impacts of what you got for that, every one of the ones that we went door to door had much higher impacts. So if you include those impacts in it, going door to door ends up being much more cost effective than just community-based social marketing alone. And then this is the one when I was talking about retention. Again, those are the 3 different routes. And if you'll notice on that third route, the one that got the door to door, 9 months later, they still had nearly 80% retention. And if you think about retention as just remembering, when we're talking retention here with the recycling program, we're talking actions. So 9 months out, they were still diverting that extra tonnage. So when you're figuring this into your calculations of a program, remember you're getting the additional diversion continuing on. Again, here, 80% of that 9 months out. So, again, what we found is that social marketing programs and outreach still are not the most cost-effective way. You can divert materials. There's a lot of other ones. If you look to the ones to the left of the line, the red line, those are the ones that are going to be more cost-effective. However, if you are doing community-based social marketing, definitely going with door-to-door outreach included is really almost twice as effective, half as cheap, and twice as effective. So again, just remembering when you're going out for a program, education, information is not motivating. You really need to go out and find why people want to do things, have focus groups, do your market research, understand where people are coming from. And, really make sure that you can demonstrate, measure before, after, along the way. Make sure it's something that you can demonstrate and really estimate its cost effectiveness so that you can prove whether or not your program is working. Thanks.
So we're going to do questions after each speaker for this session. So we have about 10 minutes. So do you have any questions for Dana? You want to just...
Sure.
I work for an affluent community where there's a lot of housekeepers, nannies, personal assistants. They're the ones answering the door, going through mail. Mm-hmm. So when I actually get face-to-face with a lot of the residents, they tell me that they don't have any connection with any of the outreach that we're doing. And a lot of them travel a lot for work. And so I feel stuck a lot because they have, we have very educated housekeepers that know everything that's going on, but they're not relaying that message to the homeowners who are actually like managing the household and managing the personal assistants. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, because obviously getting to the people who are doing that, and they're not able to. They're not able to recycle or the nannies and things like that. There's just nothing there for them, or is it there?
Oh yeah, I mean curbside recycling is fine, but introducing new programs. We started food waste a year ago, and it's been an uphill battle with education because I think recycling, everybody kind of knows the basics of that, but getting all of their staff members on board with how to then do curbside food waste. We do an industrial use program, so it's not a typical composting program. So I'm just not sure how to, I've tried sending things in an envelope that looks like a city notice, almost like something's wrong.
Yeah, you're in
And
trouble.
Still, they're like, if it looks anything like
Junk mail.
And,
Yeah.
I tried putting the city stamp on, a city seal. I was like,
Right.
I don't know where else.
And in some places, like a lot of times when we do things with businesses, for a lot of residents, we can send out postcards and reach a lot of them. When we send out things for businesses, we can reach small businesses that way, but we can't reach large businesses that way. So for large businesses, we have to go to either using emails and finding those either from the city, if possible, or if it's like a water bill, different things like that, or putting notices in water bills and different things like that people are getting. If they're the people that are paying the bills that are ones that you're trying to reach, then that's probably going to be one of the best routes to try and get a hold of them is when they're looking at the bills. So either through an email or through a phone call directly to the person, that would probably be my off the top recommendation. Anybody else?
There.
In the very back?
My question is related to door-to-door too. So we've been doing door-to-door outreach, but only hit 5 of 30 homes. People aren't home, or they're busy, or they don't want to answer the door.
Right.
So do you have any tips on more efficient door-to-door outreach?
I can go over some of the numbers too, but I think that sounds fairly typical of what we find a lot of times is that you're not going to get people home, and that you should. Do you have door hangers as well that you leave behind? Sorry, we missed you. That's typically something we would probably do is we would let them know and then give them some way to contact us, if that were the case. Any other questions?
With that kind of methodology, have you measured the results of leaving the door hangers versus the door-to-door? Is it a similar?
And especially for that Colorado project, we measured every little detail and things like that, the number of people that called in versus we actually spoke to. And it's much less than actual door-to-door, but we did get some people that contacted us, especially when they found that kind of the community was doing something or that their neighbors were doing something. Then they kind of like, hey, what's going on in the neighborhood? Then they wanted to call in. So we did get some people call back from that. Anybody else? Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana. So our next two speakers come from Gigantic Ideas Studio in Oakland. Cass Nettler, who is a dynamic leader that excels at forming strategic collaborations that result in outcomes often exceeding client goals. With over 25 years of experience, she has applied her skills in creative direction, marketing strategy, business development, design, and photography to build creative and effective marketing campaigns. Cass also designs and facilitates innovative workshops and meetings for a wide range of clients, and I know she loves cycling, right? Yes. And then Lisa Duba is right next to Cass here. They'll both be speaking in tandem. Lisa, since 1993, has been using her skills in graphic design, photography, and project management to educate and inspire the public to care for themselves and the environment. She co-founded Gigantic Ideas Studio in 2002 with the vision to create an agency that delivers outstanding creative solutions grounded in behavior change strategy. Lisa is a firm believer that public education campaigns by government agencies should use engaging concepts, and she has helped her clients create memorable multi-touch outreach campaigns. So please welcome Cass and Lisa.
We could use this.
Yeah.
starting my presentation. Thank you. Well, while he's setting that up, I wanted to say that I'm also honored to have Jordan as our moderator. We're just really impressed with his ugly fruit and vegetable campaign you're probably all familiar with. Yay, Jordan. Well, it's great to be here, and we have what's probably more of a nuts and bolts session for you. We're going to do a couple of outreach makeovers. For those not familiar with us, we're a firm that specializes in the promotion of environmental programs and behaviors. We design multi-touch campaigns to create a healthy planet, and we're based in Oakland. I have to flip the slides, that's right. So these are a few of our clients. We mostly work for government agencies and nonprofits on recycling, as you know, that's why we're here today, and water pollution prevention, among other environmental topics. I'm going to turn this over to Cass.
Yes. Well, and I would like to also point out a couple of our trusted associates in the audience today, and they are going to be available by the banana phone in case we need help with our makeover ideas. Wow, this is one right banana phone, and it is fully editable. Jordan, do you approve of the... Great.
I do approve. It's great.
Okay.
I would say it's an ugly banana.
It's an ugly banana. It's ready for banana bread. Let's see if this thing works, and let's see if we can show you a couple of our, bring. I'd like to get a hold of Stephanie Prugel here.
Hey, this is Stephanie.
Hey, Steph, you know, you're our content and media maven, and I just want to make sure the phone works.
Yeah, I'm on call. I'm calling anything you need, just call me.
Okay, great. Well, okay, goodbye. Okay, now, and I'd also like to dial Nancy Roberts, our strategic communication and planning social media expert.
Yes. What? Strategy?
Strategy.
Strategy, yes. Yeah, I'll be right here. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, we're on it. Good. So, where's the clicker? Oh, anyone going to tell me how this thing works? Okay, so, Extreme Makeover. Just kidding, not that kind of makeover. All right. So we're here to help show you how to optimize the good work you're already doing. Okay? And with those just a few tweaks, we feel you can go from a meh campaign to a magnificent campaign. So we put the call out for submissions from our clients and colleagues to see if they are interested in sending in a couple pieces. And today we're going to highlight two of those pieces that we decided to transform in front of your very eyes today. So back to you, Lisa. I don't think I ruffled your notes.
Okay. All right. So the first candidate is a recycling brochure for multifamily buildings. Like we heard with the first speaker, there's a lot that goes into creating a good campaign, from research to picking out the proper tools. But with any outreach you do, you're going to want to have some communications pieces to talk about your program. So we're going to work on a recycling brochure for multifamily buildings today. Probably something that a lot of you have done already, right? Can anyone share with me? We should let you know that we're going to be calling on you during this session, so it's late in the day, so you can't sleep. You got to stay awake, all right? So first of all, can anyone share a challenge they've had with communicating to a multifamily audience? Anyone?
Getting the information to them.
Getting it, delivering it. Okay. Anyone else? Turnover in residents, right? Very important. Anyone else? Marty?
Property managers or resident managers even not necessarily being cooperative, and if you're willing to go door to door, not ready to do it.
Right. So property managers as a gatekeeper, maybe a barrier there. Right. So those are some common ones. Anyone else? Nope.
Many different languages.
Languages, right. Okay. Right. So not only communications barriers, but program barriers, right? Operational barriers as well. All right, so that's a lot of different challenges. And one of the takeaways of just that discussion is that not one piece can really solve all your problems, right? You'll probably need you'll need more than one strategy to address that, right? But whatever you're doing, you're probably going to want some kind of program brochure for your program. So that brings us to our first candidate. We'll look at the before It is the City of Fremont's Apartment and Condominium Recycling Guideline. Do we have Lori Mara here in the audience? Lori, there she is. Thank you, Lori, for being our candidate. All right, so this is the front of their brochure. It's an 8.5 by 11, half fold. This is the inside spread, and the city contacted us. What they wanted for their makeover was simply to replace the panel on the right, the HHW panel, with an organics panel, because they were going to add the organics and food scrap collection to the apartment buildings in Fremont. And this is the back panel. Here you can see top looks like it's open for mailing. We have these 5 simple steps here, step 1 through 5, for people to take some kind of action. So, but rather than just do what's asked of us in our gigantic style, we're going to put this and do a whole makeover here. So we wanted to take it through our evaluation process, which begins with, quite simply, who is the audience, right? Who are you talking to? We're going to look at detail now of the original piece. I'm going to ask Cass to read out that orange circle there at the top.
Yes. Being a, let's see, what does it say?
Yeah.
Do I need the mic? Okay. Part of being a good neighbor is recycling properly. Place only recyclable materials, cardboard, paper, glass, aluminum, and plastic containers in the recycling bin. Refer to the inside of this brochure for a detailed list of recyclable items.
All right, so that's our intro paragraph, one of the first things people might read. So who does that speak to when you read that? Who do you think we're talking to? Residents. Okay. All right, so the yellow circle here.
Property managers or owners are required to provide the following for their tenants.
And it goes on to talk about providing containers, providing signage, and making sure the bins are properly serviced. So what audience does you think that is speaking to, those kinds of statements? Property managers. Anyone else? So maybe it shows that the residents need to know what their property manager is responsible for, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. On the back side, we've got some more, the steps that we've mentioned before. Yeah. Okay, so step 1 is free consultation. Call Fremont's multifamily recycling coordinator to set up a site assessment at your complex. Audience, who says residents? Who says property managers? Okay, so most people think that. Step 2, get needed tools. Contact Republic Services for free indoor containers, posters, signs, decals. Audience, who says residents? Property managers? Okay. Step 3, get your community motivated. Republic Services Recycling Coordinator is available for community events to educate residents about recycling. Again, audience, property managers? Residents, anyone? Some people say maybe. Okay. So step 4, notify management when there are problems and contamination issues or new signage is needed. This may be a little more tricky. So, is it property managers or residents? Residents, okay. Step 5, for additional info, visit Republic Services website or City of Fremont's Environmental Services website. So audience here, residents? Both, right, so we've got both. So the conclusion we came to when we read this is we've got some different messages going on here, maybe for 2 different sets of people here. And these steps are not necessarily sequential, and they're maybe not simple depending on the barriers that the audience is facing. Okay, the second thing we look at is, so now we think we have 2 audiences. We're going to look at the piece again and say, is that an audience reflected in the piece? So this is the cover photo. What do you see here when you see this image? Anyone? What do you notice about it? What do you think about? What does it say to you? Residents? Okay, someone mentioned it might look like they're in a single-family home, right? And this is our multifamily brochure. Anything else? I can't hear.
They have a drinking problem.
Oh. Okay. All right. So good points. The same thing our team came up with. So you guys are experts already here. So we looked a little deeper into the demographics of Fremont. I know this is hard to read, but the orange circle is 50% of the population is Asian. About 33% is white. We don't know if that's the apartment residents. Demographics might be different too, so I should qualify that. But in general, we had an image of a white family which could work, but maybe more resonating would be an image like one you see at the below. Okay, the most important things, we're all looking for some kind of behavior change, or at least for our tools to facilitate that change, right? So we want to make sure that there's a clear call to action. Is it clear what we want people to do? So remember this panel? Yep, so we acknowledge that there's different calls to action for different audiences and that it's not sequential here. So again, we're going to have to look more deeply at the call to actions when we do our makeover. Now, this is the inside spread, the one that was referred to on the cover for looking inside for how to sort your information. So we're assuming these are sorting instructions, and we want to look at them and say, are they clear? I think I might get on my banana phone because I have a really good colleague who knows a lot about this kind of stuff. Bring, 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 bring. Hey, Stephanie, I've got the inside of this brochure here. It's some sorting instructions. I know you love those, and you love to get them in order. It's because you're German, and it's got to be very clear. Yes. Okay. Yes.
I'd be happy to chime in on that. Yeah. When you give sorting instructions, I mean, it's a great practice to use language as well as photos. So that's great. I see photos. Along with a list of materials, but I think there's some room for improvement. When you look at the bins, and there's sort of a bit of a cutaway up there by the lids, and materials shown, it's kind of, even for my German eagle eyes, it's kind of hard to see what items there are. Like, do you see that pink looks like sort of a wife beater t-shirt in the landfill?
What is that? Oh, that one there.
So, those are kind of
My hand is shaking.
recognize. I see there's a panel on the left that has bigger images of items, and that's great too. Generally, it helps recognize items you might have at home and overcome language barriers when you use photos, but it's kind of hard to correlate which list those items go with. So we would assume there's probably the recycling pile, but there's some questions that are raised, maybe more questions than answered. Like, for example, what's that bag in the middle? What do you guys think? What's that bag of trash? A bag of bags. A bag. Yeah, you guys are the insiders. Who's a regular resident? Yeah, that's clear when you read on the list, the recycling list. The bottom item is plastic bags, and in parentheses it says, if I could read that.
Always bundled together. Plastic bags always bundled together. So this image here, or this label here, probably going with that image. Yeah. And
So after a little guesswork, you can figure it out, but you really don't want your people to guess when they're using a recycling guide.
And what about this panel on the right? This is the one they wanted us to take out and maybe replace. But how does it work just right now in sorting instructions?
Yeah, well, if you see that recycling panel on the left with the photos, it's almost like, oh, maybe that's the stuff that should go into the trash bin on the right, because there's photos as well, and then it has this waste and electronics. So in sort of looking at these panels that represent the bins in my trash room, I might think, oh, maybe there's a pile for my hazardous waste as well. I see that there's a little map at the bottom, and the small print says that you need to take it somewhere else, but it's not immediately clear that that's actually something you need to keep out of any bin in your trash room. So I think that could maybe be clarified a little bit.
All right, thanks. Thanks for that expert opinion. You can hang up your banana phone. Of course, I've hung mine up, so I forgot to hold it to my ear. It's a magic banana phone. All right. So another thing we like to tell our clients is there consistency across channels? You may be giving out this brochure, but what about the other places that your audience might go to find information? Does the brochure match the signs that they might see in their room, things like that? So just to do a quick check on that, we went to the URLs that were on the brochure, and we see City of Fremont here has a nice recycling section. They have single family and multifamily, very clear which way you go to find your information. information. But in multifamily, it just looks like the old brochure wasn't updated to the new one. So that's quick, easy fix right there to make it consistent so that people will get the same message no matter where they go. Same thing when we went to Republic's website. There was a multifamily page with a lot of downloadable resources. So randomly picked some downloadable resources. This poster for multifamily buildings was one of them, clearly labeled as such. But you see it has a very different look. It still has the outdated logo from Allied Waste. So just a quick check on consistency there. All right, so now we're ready to go to our after. And remember, this is tweaking the work that you already do that's already good. So on the cover, with not a lot of change here, but it might appear, but actually some very important changes to clarify those problems we identified, which was the problem with the two audiences, right? So we rewrote the intro paragraph to make it clear. I should first say that if you're going to have outreach to property managers, that is a big barrier. They may need a whole set of tools on their own, including personal visits and calls, letters to give their tenants, all those kinds of things in a separate toolkit. But we also know that budget is tight, and for a program brochure, if you do need to combine it, at least you can clearly delineate the two different audiences. So the intro paragraph will set up the fact that this is for both. It says, part of being a good neighbor is recycling properly. Success depends on owners, managers, and tenants working together to meet local laws. And we all know that part of upgrading to the organics collection in MFD is driven by the ordinances that you're all facing. So also letting all three audiences know that this is part of complying with local laws is important too. And now the calls to action on the front of the page now are clearly delineated into two sections. So the top section is for property managers, and they get the bullets about their requirements to provide containers, provide signage, and provide information for tenants. And the bottom section says that residents are required to sort properly. That's the part of their role in this whole effort. Now the inside is where we have the biggest transformation here, and we simply are following best practices for information design here, and something that any one of you can take in any kind of sorting guide that you need to do. The first thing we did was set up parallel structure. So you see that each column is clearly for one stream, and these three, of course, are about what can go in bins, but this one we left in because we had the room, but it's also important to you to keep the stuff out of these bins, right? So as long as it's set up in a parallel way, that it's clearly that these things are not accepted, you can keep this in this brochure. So color coding is important. Keep the bins the same color if possible, and label your brochures with those same colors. Group items by type. So this is where you want to kind of like put your paper items together, your aluminum foil, your metal cans, glass bottles, because people will be able to understand better when things of the same are put in context with each other. Also, avoid overlapping images if possible, because if people can see the outline of the item, it's just more instantly recognizable to them as to what it is. We've also combined the words with the images so that they're more easily understood together. So you see what we did here with the bundled plastic bags is we actually had a little how-to diagram. So now we have room for that, where you see single bags and then they're together inside the bag. And that's what people need to do. Now, people mention language, and this isn't reflected here as multilingual, but that's something that can be added. And then the pictures do a whole lot to overcome the multilingual barrier as well. Now, the back page is where we had the 5 easy steps, the call to action. So we solved that problem by, again, clearly delineating sections and taking out the 5 steps since they weren't sequential, and just giving each audience their own section of things that they would need to do to take action. So property owners can schedule that free consultation. They can request free bins. They can get tenants involved. And then residents will participate in the program properly and also be able to alert management to problems, so they're empowered. They have a call to action that empowers them. Oops, okay. The last thing on the left is this tip for anyone who has to struggle with a long URL about where you want to send people for more information. There are ways to shorten that URL, but redirect the URL to the actual page that you want to send people to. And that's it for City of Fremont. Thank you, Fremont. Does anyone have any burning questions on this makeover before we move to the second makeover?
You can call him on banana.
Karen?
I'm sorry, did you say you did any translation or just use the images with the simple words?
We didn't on this makeover, but we have done it with others, yeah. I completely forgot to talk about the image on the cover, so nobody called me on the banana phone telling me that I forgot. It's okay. So we did replace the image. This is another stock image, though, that's sort of like the other one, only this family is Asian. But I wanted to address that really doing custom photography with real residents in your area, in the buildings, that a sample building would really work the best, and showing your bins, because I don't think that these bins are common anymore. And if you could get, again, real residents, a custom photo library of that nature will really go a long way. It's a good investment and actually doesn't have to cost that much. It also does, I know some of the multicultural session talked about getting that peer messenger. We've found that featuring local residents in these pieces helps distribute the information, at least as a kickoff. Like we had done a video for City of Oakland and used 5 different residents, and before the piece was even launched, it was just on our YouTube, 500 views came in. So people were, telling their neighbors and their friends and their families that they were in this piece, and that now the issue is really important to them because they've become a spokesperson for it. So that's another tip there. So sorry for out of sequence, but any other questions for Fremont? Okay, we're going to turn it over to Cass for candidate number 2.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Whoops. Well, let's go forward. There we go. Candidate number 2. Conservation Corps of North Bay in the house. So I met these two in the food truck line today, and I was so excited to share with them, and I made them come. So, so thanks for coming, and thanks for submitting your flyer for our review. So when they submitted their flyer, I'm going to quote you what they're dealing with, and this may sound familiar to many of you when you think about your own pieces. They said, "We're having a hard time figuring out how to market everything we do in a concise but informative manner. See our flyer for an example of outreach material we recently sent to local municipalities. It only highlights a few things that our recycling crew does, but it is still pretty bulky. We need help." All right, let's take a look at the before. Okay, so what we have here, first of all, what a great organization and what wonderful services. And I want to give you a little taste of what CCNB does. They recruit and train young people that can be hired by organizations in a range of projects. So they might do e-waste or use tire collection, recycling, special event services, a whole range of things they do. So they provided us with a 2-page flyer, and it included a list of services and these awesome, I will have to totally say, awesome photos of the work in action, of the Corps members in action. So they're wondering how to market themselves. And they actually have to market themselves to 3 distinctive audiences. So they're trying to get to potential Corps members, to donors, and potential customers. I'm going to call them customers because it's not your traditional customer, but still agencies, organizations, municipalities, that kind of thing. And for those of us in the waste world, we can relate to this, right? So a lot of times we're trying to put out stuff and we're trying to get to single family, multifamily, businesses, the whole 9 yards. So let's see here. Oops, there we go. So keep in mind the audience for this piece and the potential customers, right? And in that sense, the main message that we're trying to communicate are the benefits of hiring and working with the CCNB and its Corps members. But however, the first thing you see when you see the brochure and this little blow up is their logo and the tagline, "A Path to a Better Future." So I'm going to ask you, the audience, what are your perceptions of the tagline and who does this speak to? So anyone out there? I can use the banana phone. Who does this speak to? Does this speak to the banana phone?
Well, I would say it speaks to potential core members who are concerned about their education, their future. They've been having trouble in school or at home.
Okay, so potential core members is what she's saying. So let's just keep this in mind for now, that the primary objective of this piece is to promote their services and get the crews hired. Okay, so I'd also like to bring in the idea of multi-touch. So now we're leaving the flyer for a moment and we're heading over to their webpage. And I just want to say that as great as any flyer can be, it's rarely enough, especially when you're promoting services such as CCNB. So keep in mind, websites are a must when you're selling services. So let's take a look at their current homepage. So we got a great photo. It's a little cropped off here, but you got to scan down. It's pretty easy to find if you want to become a core member. That seems to be pretty great. Apparently, we're in summer. And it's a little bit harder to find. This says hire core members. So it's up here, but it's a little small. It's a little hard to get to. And then conservation, it's this navigation piece here that actually when you click on that, that's where you find their services. So it's not really upfront how to get to those services, okay? So we're just going to keep all that in mind. Okay, the other thing these guys have, which is awesome and great, and we love it, is a Facebook page, right? Wait, you don't have a Facebook page?
Oh, no, we do.
You don't love it?
I like the top image personally, but it's not my decision.
All right. Well, maybe you can go back to the office with ideas after this. Okay. So another area for multi-touch is social media, and and on closer look, very active, which is awesome. But in the last year, we couldn't find a post that dealt with your services for hire. So we feel that's a missed opportunity. So let's head over to the after, and this is where we're going to focus our messaging opportunity to inform and inspire the potential customer about your offerings and why it's great. So here is, if I could flip a page, love my low-tech with high-tech solution up here. Okay, so I offer you a mantra, okay? Flyers are for highlights and websites are for details. So keep that in mind. Flyers are for highlights and websites are for details. And no single piece can do all your work. So this is a great first touch for audience. And for this particular piece, we took the existing flyer and we went from the 2 pages down to 1 page, okay? And we totally focused on the services. Let's see if we can dial in here. So here's a blow up of the top half. And if you remember the before piece, the logo and the tagline was the first thing you see. Well, on the, whoops, hey, come back. So on the new piece, the first thing we hope that you kind of go in on is need recycling help for your next event or project, like right up front, right, nice and big, okay? And we added the catchy headline, and we put the services offered right up front, easy to find, in a box, boom, 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 let's get it out there, okay? And we still have your logo, but we've kind of reduced it a little bit in terms of its hierarchy on the page and moved it over here so that we can all have this. But look what we kept. We love your photography, okay? This is fantastic, and this also offers us an opportunity to highlight in caption form what you guys do. So here we go. This is the bottom half of the page. So to convince someone to hire the cores, the marketing pieces can work to build trust, okay, by including customer testimonials. So we brought this, I'm very impressed with Conservation Corps' efforts and the work of their staff. You guys did a wonderful job, from Thomas over here. And we have a list of past clients. And sometimes you might want to use logos for them, but here's a great list. And again, it builds trust and shows that you're already out in the community and doing good work with these organizations. And once again, excellent use of photos. And to me, this redesign really helps show how you deliver quality work, okay? And it's all in one single page. So remember our mantra. Flyers are for highlights. websites are for details. So I think now would be a great time to utilize my phone. Bring, 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 bring.
You have reached Nancy's iPad.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hi, Nancy.
Oh, I guess.
Hey, wanted to bring you in. I want to talk about digital for details with the Conservation Corps.
Ah, yes.
I'm going to put you on speakerphone on my side.
Please do,
Okay.
Yes. We have another mantra here, which is good outreach specialist copy and great outreach specialist feel. So I highly recommend that if you're worrying about something about your website, that you look at how other people might have solved your problem. So this is a page, the homepage of the San Francisco Conservation Corps, and not that I'm prejudiced towards San Francisco because I live there, but it's okay. But in this case, I think they did a very good job of a very simple, clear navigation structure at the top of the homepage, not giving you two kinds of menus, and a very simple opportunities and hire us instead of conservation. So just a simple word change can make all the difference for somebody who's coming to your website, they want to figure out I can't figure out what this means, what's conservation, and they go out again, right? So again, attention span's very low, they're going to need to go right here, oh, hire us, oh, recycling services, yeah, I'm having that recycling event come in, let me see what they can do, or whatever it might be. So just a simple tweak by stealing somebody else's ideas can really be very helpful. And the same thing goes for a multi-touch cat. Can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
Yeah, for social media. So we mocked up, as we mentioned before, the Conservation Corps has over 1,000 Facebook friends. They've got a really nice set of posts, but they did nothing about selling their services, if you will, to community organizations in the past year that I could see anyway. So we mocked up. This is a fake post. Hope it's okay.
You can steal this.
And I made up a statistic because people love numbers. I stole your picture because people love good pictures. And I tagged Marin County Fair, which was your client at the time. And so these really simple things took me 2 seconds, but it immediately gets that secondary touch, gets out to other people, and will really expand your reach. As long as you don't do it just once and let it go. So, a single flyer is not going to do it. A single social media post isn't going to do it. One little thing on your website isn't going to do it. But all working together, and you're going to be way ahead of the game. Yeah?
Yeah.
Can I go back to my...
Yeah, I'm going to hang up and Okay, great. So thank you, Conservation Corps, North Bay, for playing our makeover session. And now I'm going to give it back to Lisa, who's going to take us into best practices.
All right, so we're just going to conclude with a little summary of what we went through today. Any of these best practices probably can be immediately employed in the outreach that you're already doing. No need for an extreme makeover. Just a little tweaking can really take things from meh to magnificent, as we said. So the first one, again, is tailor by audience. And you can do that by using, with your message, so the copy that you write, but also your images, right? Speak to your community, show the right context, whether it's an office or a multifamily building or a single-family home, and clearly break out your calls to action if you're going to include two audiences in one piece. So back to call to actions, make them clear. A lot of times we'll see a laundry list of things that people need to do when that can be kind of overwhelming or too much to take at one time. This is an example of a piece that we worked on with Zero Waste Palo Alto. And research that we did with Action Research is here in the audience. Yep, it had showed us that people were really not aware that meat, bones, or soiled paper could go in the food into the green cart. So we just started off with a campaign that simply got that message top, front and center up here. Clear instructions, again, best practices with if you're doing any sort of sorting guide, the color coding, the individual items, group items by type, and keep the word label together with the images. And here's an example where you can put 3 languages on one piece, very simple, or just working with the tags here, the labels for the items and not the rest of it, so at least the main message gets across if you don't have the resources to do a piece for every language. And again, back to these fantastic images. tell your story. Get a photographer out there. Even some iPhone photos, if you're using social media, will be good enough. Hire a local photographer to do a photo shoot with your residents and really make your outreach pop to the people you're trying to speak to. And lastly, multi-touch and consistent. So we've said this a few times now, so hopefully you'll remember that you can't do everything with one piece. But when you do the multiple pieces, make sure that they match, right? They should match in tone, the way the language is written, the types of terminology you use, the colors, the fonts, all of that should be very, very similar. That helps with recall, and it helps your organization become recognized in the community. Again, a huge thanks to our fearless volunteers, Conservation Corps North Bay, and City of Fremont. And that's our presentation for today. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions on the second makeover or best practices, anything like that? We did it specially for this presentation, so if they'd like to take it and put it in circulation or make tweaks to it, they're certainly welcome to. I bet your question is, what time is dinner, right?
Okay. Thank you all for hanging in there at the 4 o'clock hour. We know you're all waiting for an espresso, so Jordan,
Yeah, so thank you all for coming, and then please come on up and approach them if you have any questions. So thank you very much to Gigantic and Dana. Thank you very much.